Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. On the program this morning, we'll be taking a look at modernizing schools curriculum for effective learning. For those who really know the business of education, they will always tell you that curriculum plays a pivotal role in the development of education in any nation. And today, we'll be taking a look at where we are in Nigeria and how important it is for us to be at par with what happens in other parts of the world when it comes to the development and the running of schools curriculum. Joining the conversation this morning via Zoom is one who is very passionate about education, and she's the team lead Safe Schools Initiative here in Lagos. We're glad to have Dr. Bisi Isurosho join us via Zoom this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Isurosho, for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Right, let's start this way. When we talk about curriculum generally, how important or what role does curriculum really play when it comes to education generally now?
Thank you. The curriculum is like the Bible for effective teaching and learning.
Right.
The curriculum sets for the stakeholders, both the teachers, the school, the parents, and even the students themselves. So the curriculum should be prescriptive. It should be clear on what to do so that the standard of education can be the same all across schools. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that curriculum should be drafted in such a way that if I'm teaching photosynthesis in a school in Yaba, when they get to the same topic in a school in Jigawa or Adamawa, it should be taught exactly the same way.
Okay.
That is what we say when we say that curriculum should be prescriptive.
Right.
It's like a constitution of the country that guides every activity that is done within a nation. So basically, in a classroom, the curriculum should set the tone for effective teaching and learning.
Okay.
Okay, looking at our curriculum presently, what are the vital elements that are lacking in our current curriculum? And when we say curriculum, are we looking at it from primary, secondary to tertiary level?
First of all, I need to let you know that the most important curriculum is the primary curriculum. The primary curriculum, we need to revisit the primary curriculum to ensure that our children are being given exactly what they need to learn, exactly what they need to be in the same place as all the other children in the world. What am I saying? If, for example, in the UK, children are taught only the core subjects in primary school. Because if you look at it, they only need those core subjects to allow them to access all the other courses, all the other subjects. So there's no reason why we should waste time and load the children with irrelevancies when they are in primary schools. It will not give them a chance, an opportunity to learn competently the core subject that they need to access all the others.
Okay.
For example, language, right? And when I say language, it doesn't have to be English. We may decide that we want to teach our children in their mother tongue, which researchers have found to be very useful in recent times. And that's the reason why countries like India, China are excelling in education, because the children are learning in their mother tongue. Now, in our own case, we have that opportunity to grasp quickly, because we first of all have to learn English. English is a topic, it's a subject that needs to be learned first before you can access the curriculum. So that already has given us a kind of disadvantage, our children, a kind of disadvantage. And that's the reason why some of our children learn slowly. You know, all of us, all our children, number one, except for those who use English as a first language at home. And that's the reason why our languages are disappearing, because parents now are speaking English as the first language for their children at home, so that they will not be at the disadvantage of learning. So that's number one. Language has to be prioritized. And when I say language, if it's English we still want to continue to use, then we need to prioritize the teaching, the effective teaching of English in the classroom.
Right.
And how do we do that? We need to create what we call the literacy hour, whereby children just talk. They need to master the use of English before they can learn the grammar, before they can learn the written. You know, the speaking is very important. They need to be competent in the use of English to socialize. That's number one. Then number two, we need to look at numeracy, right? And I'm not saying mathematics, and I'm not saying
arithmetic.
Arithmetic. I'm saying numeracy. Numeracy goes beyond that. It is the ability of an individual to understand money, to know that if you give me 1,000 naira and you buy something of 850 naira, your change will be 150. So we need to teach children numeracy. These are all the core skills that they need to access the curriculum. Now, when I talk about literacy again, I spoke about languages, and also digital literacy comes under literacy, because the illiterates of tomorrow are not those that cannot read and write, but they are those that cannot manipulate digital stuff. So basically, it's very important that we look at digital literacy, you know, so that our children, because everybody, nearly everybody now has a phone.
Yeah.
The children have access to their parents' phone. So, and a phone is a digital device. So children need to learn how to navigate digitally in the current world, and also the risk that is attached to those at a very
early age.
Those are the things that we need to ensure that children know. And in addition to civic study, we call it civic study in Nigeria, but I would really love us to call it the Nigerian values. We need to develop a set of values for us, and out of that must be honesty, it must be diligence. You know, we need to teach children to hate corruption, indiscipline, and things like this. These are the core things that we need in our curriculum to make a great nation of a nation.
Okay.
Right?
Dr. Suru, so let me quickly hold your thoughts on that, and then we'll definitely come back to the issue of the morals, because I remember that it used to be moral studies before it became civic studies, but now you are asking that it be called the Nigerian values. But let's quickly backtrack a little bit, and going back to sometime in October last year, where the former education minister, Professor Maman, had launched the new curriculum, which should actually take effect in January 2025, though we are in March 2025, and the new curriculum is also expected to introduce some basic trades into the primary level. And so for you, I know you did mention earlier that the primary curriculum is actually the most vital, because we must be sure that our children are starting on a great note. So for you, the 15 new courses that were introduced into the curriculum to enhance trade and skills of young Nigerian children, is this the way to go?
To start with, we already have a curriculum that all we need to do is to enhance it.
Okay.
I do not believe that we need to change our curriculum. All we need to do is to enhance the curriculum, to inject certain priorities into the curriculum to make it work.
Okay.
The curriculum that we have already have vocation. We were using the 6334, which basically included vocational studies. So I do not quite understand the new curriculum that I've not studied it, that the last minister added to our curriculum. But if it has to do with trade and vocational studies, it's a step in the right direction. But like many other policies in Nigeria, it is not the policies that can be faulted. Most of our policies cannot be faulted.
The implementation.
But it is the implementation that are usually faulted. We need to look for veterans, people that understand how to implement and manage a project in education. Project management in education is key for our policyholders, so that we are able to launch something, implement it, carry the stakeholders along, the stakeholders engagement, carry the stakeholders along, and implement and monitor and evaluate. I'm not sure whether we are monitoring and we are evaluating our policies. The 6334 policy is a good policy if only we understand it ourselves and we know how to manage it, to implement it, and whether it's effective. You know, I keep saying what we need is curriculum enrichment. We need to enrich the curriculum that we have, because really to overhaul the curriculum and change the curriculum from the beginning to the end is very difficult. It is very difficult to just overhaul the curriculum. What we can do is to enrich the curriculum and look for areas where there are gaps, and we plug the gaps. What we need to do is what we call the education intervention. We need to create a number of interventions for the education sector in the area of curriculum. For example, but it's not just the curriculum. Also, the initial teacher training needs to be revisited. Our teachers are rusty. Our teachers are being taught the way they were taught 40 years ago. Because I have a friend whose daughter is in Unilag, and she came to tell me that her daughter came home with the same note in education that she learned when she was in Unilag, when we were there about 40 years ago.
Wow.
So we need to revisit the initial teacher training and give different routes to that profession. In the UK and in all the other developed nations, there are different routes to becoming a teacher, right? Becoming a teacher, what we need to look for is to attract the right people. And attracting the right people means that we are looking for those who have the passion for the profession. The passion is the most important attribute of a teacher. The passion. Anybody that has a passion to impact knowledge will impart knowledge. That is the most important.
Yeah, talking about gaps and areas where we need to improve our curriculum now. You did mention teacher training. Can we also look at motivation for teachers and how government should also increase budgetary allocation to the education sector?
Oh, definitely. I won't be the first person to say this. The United Nations have said it. It's part of the United Nations criteria for education, is that the education budget should not be less than 10% of the overall budget allocation. So we are not there yet, you know, in Nigeria, and we have to keep talking about it. Maybe one day we are going to have our leaders listen to us to put education first, because education and health are the two most important, you know, factors in the economy, because it is only the people who are well and healthy that can go ahead and push the economic agenda. And the tool that they need to to push that agenda is education. So a country or a nation or a people can only develop as far as the educational system allows them. So it's very important that our leaders put education and health on the front burner.
Okay.
What about the motivation of teachers?
Motivation of teachers can be done in several ways, because in the developed world, it's not just the government that are motivating teachers. There are so many things that we can do in order to support the government, to support the teachers. There are so many things, you know. In the Western world, the charitable organization and voluntary organizations are very critical in making things work in the society. So in Nigeria, we're not there yet. There are so many ways. For example, the banking industry can have CSR towards teachers. It will be CSR in education. Instead of them thinking of putting a signboard in front of a school, helping a school to write a signboard, and they spend so much money on writing a signboard, they could invest in soft skills for the teachers. They could pay for teachers to access certain training that are soft skills in nature for them. They can also, you know, the insurance company can launch a cheap insurance or a cheaper insurance for teachers.
Okay.
For example, that's what happens in the UK. That's what happens anywhere else in the world.
Right.
You know, teachers, because you are a teacher, because it is the work that helps others. Anybody that is in social services, right? Education, health, you know, they are able to access certain, you know, motivational discount from all the other
service providers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Banking. You know, bank can say teachers will get a reduced rate or they can get interest-free loan to get a car. You know, so government should be looking at speaking to all the other sector and ensure that we engage them to look for ways that will not cost them anything more, to help us to also
enjoy basic benefits.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Doctor. I mean, earlier you did talk about digital literacy, which I said we would come back to. And so if we're still going to, you know, enlarge digital literacy, some are also saying that we can begin to look, as part of modernization, we can begin to look at ensuring that our curriculum remain relevant locally, but are globally competitive. Do you also believe in this, especially now that the world is just, you know, at the press of a button?
Excellent. I always say it. When I was the special advisor in Oyo State, I launched a project called Oyo State Model Education System Intervention. This is to make our children locally relevant, our education locally relevant and globally competitive. That is the key. So we need to start looking at the curriculum and look at it, you know, in precept by precept and say, okay, what do we need to inject here to ensure that the curriculum is locally relevant? It's got to be locally relevant first.
Right. We
have to be self-sufficient first as a nation. And for us to be self-sufficient, we need our education to help us. Our children in the engineering department must be devising and creating products that will fix the issues that we have in engineering in Nigeria. Our architectural student must be looking at ways to fix the issues that we have and the gaps in the architectural sector or in the architecture of our buildings. So I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Right? People should be we should be raising our children and we should be pointing the curriculum in a way that our children are able to be creative thinking.
Right.
So very, very important that we are locally relevant first, because that is the most important. We are a nation of over 200 million. If we are able to provide for ourselves, to be locally relevant, then we will have grown our GDP beyond even what is being proposed by the economy experts.
Okay.
Now, so being locally relevant is key to the curriculum. And then globally competitive. Globally competitive means we now need to introduce digital literacy, you know, electronic know-how, and make sure that we are able to be in the same divide as the rest of the world in terms of technology.
Okay.
So technology is key. So technology is what we need to be globally relevant.
Right.
But to be locally relevant, I mean to be globally competitive, we need technology. But to be locally relevant, we can start straight away.
Okay.
Why don't we have children devising how the Kekemarua people can be smarter in using that Kekemarua? How can we not have kids, you know, innovating solutions for gari making? Why are we not? These are the ways we can be locally relevant. When we are talking about locally relevance, that is what it means.
Okay.
It means that we are able to devise solutions for our
local
problems.
issues, right?
Okay, Doctor, I love what you just raised now, challenging our children to be very innovative and, of course, providing solutions to our local problems here. In this part of the world, we perceive vocational education to be inferior, and then people tend to look down upon you if you attend a technical college. In China, in India, we see their technicians doing wonders in the world. What attention do you think government should be given to vocational education in Nigeria?
Thank you. The attention that the government should be giving to vocational education in Nigeria basically is about funding. Government needs to fund vocational education in a way that the schools have a pool of money for research, right? When I was in government, I went through the schools, vocational school and technical school in Oyo State, and I found out that they were like abandoned. They look dilapidated, that they don't even have the simple implement that they need to teach. So basically, those, if the government is serious about raising our GDP, then they need to look at education, and they need to commit to education. They need to back all their policies with budgetary allocations. Okay. Because we just say these things in Nigeria. We come up with fancy policy, but we don't have, they're not backed with
relevant legislation and implementation.
Budgetary allocation.
Okay.
So I will like to encourage government to look into funding of education.
Okay, but
same thing with, can I just say something?
Okay, please go ahead.
The same thing with tertiary. Research is not being funded properly, and that's the reason why we cannot be locally relevant, because it's not just the technical and vocational schools that needs to be funded. The tertiary needs to be funded in the area of research. All over the world, the government fund research for university. They don't fund tuition, right? Tuition, children get loans, or their parents pay for their tuition, because tertiary education, it's not free.
It's not free.
It is not free. The education that is free is basic education, which is education from age 6 to 18 at the most.
Okay.
Doctor, aside from that funding, how do we change the perception about vocational education?
Honestly, if if we continue to, number one, to ensure that those who go to vocational schools can also attain what we call degree. They need to be able to attain a degree level. And that's one of the reasons why the late Governor Ajimobi started the first technical university in Ibadan. The technical university is not University of Technology. It's not University of Technical. It's a technical university where our intention when we started it, because I was part of the government at that time, our intention was for the technical university to be a school where a hairdresser can go and get a master degree. It's, you know, you don't need to have the formal
education
O-levels
to
enter the technical university. You are going there to own your skills and to make you globally relevant. So if mechanic, you should be able to go to the technical university and get a master course. Right? There should be a curriculum in which they are able to harness what you know and give you the jumps. What do you need to become a world-class mechanic? That's what you should be doing.
Okay, Doctor, we need to go, but before we go, let's quickly take you back to what you said earlier, that at the moment what we do need is an enhancement rather than, you know, looking at how the curriculum should be changed from time to time. But for you, is there really that need to ensure that, you know, the curriculum are worked on maybe every 5 years or every 10 years? Is there a need for that? You can go ahead with your response, Doctor.
Yes, it's even too late. Every 5 years is too late. The curriculum is meant to be worked on as a working document. A curriculum should be a live document that keeps changing, right? Because education is not static. Keeps changing, and the curriculum must be tweaked in a way to reflect those changes. Right? That is what happened in the developed parts of the world. In the developed parts of the world, there are memos, there are circulars that are being circulated every 2 weeks in schools to let us know the direction we should be teaching to. Exactly, because you see, education itself, the syllabus itself may not change. But
the teaching methodology,
the scheme of work will change. The scheme of work is what informs how children are taught. How children are taught. And I don't think are taught. You know, I don't think our scheme of work in Nigeria has changed over time. So when we're talking about curriculum, it's a generalized term that we're using. But really, what should be changing is the scheme
of work.
How do we do the SOW? That's what we call it in education. How is the SOW, you know, designed to ensure that children are learning what they need for the current work? For the current
would have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. BC Isuru Show, Team Lead, Safe Schools Initiative, for finding time to help us shed more light on this very important topic today. We appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
okay, we've been speaking with Dr. Isuru Show, and she's helped us, of course, shed more light on this topic today. And like she said, basically, it is the scheme of work that should, you know, change continuously, because I think we need to get to that level where, I mean, it's sad that what you were taught 40 years ago is what is being taught in some of those places. So we need to
I just hope that what we experienced then is not what the children who are trying to enter tertiary institution are experiencing now. I wanted to study mass comm or law, and I was compelled to go and pass mathematics. For what? And I got to school, there was nothing like mathematics in what I was doing.
I think it's much better, because now they have guardians and counselors who are also helping them in that direction. Thank you so much for watching this side of the table this morning. We'll take a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues.
The views expressed on this program do not represent that of the producer, management of Lagos Television, or the Lagos State Government. They remain the perspectives of those expressing them. Thank you for staying with Lagos Television.